a team to reinforce me. Starting with yours, Chair, you talked about the sub-county policing model and how it sits within the or resides with the CCTV system and coverage. Indeed, we are doing the sub-county policing model now. But sometimes some sub-counties are in areas already covered. That's the fortunate thing. Those which are not will have to wait for the percolation down of the coverage. I think that's what, because some of the sub-counties, even as we reorganize, we found that we don't even need to send people there. They are already covered, whether in cities or municipalities or towns. So it's a balance sheet. I think we need to tabulate the coverage and see which sub-county in the planned model is covered and which is not within the CCTV grid. But ideally, we should cover all the spots that need to be covered for this system to give us the effect we deserve from it, in ensuring that we enforce the law more efficiently. Then you asked about assuring the country that the cameras have capacity to detect a covered face. I don't want to hazard an answer here. The technical people will help us on what it can do. But what I know is that it can identify someone, but it may not identify a hooded person. And this system is also complementary to other force multipliers. Because if you are covered, your face is covered, you still will use the road, desirably which is covered. Maybe you are in a vehicle which is numbered. So there are other complementary factors which may help finally to track you down, just in case your face is not identifiable. But the technical people will help on the detail of how effective the cameras are and how far they go in identifying people who engage in mischief. The main grid going off, power and IoT outages, I want the technical people to help us there. Whether the system depends on, has an inbuilt power system, or it depends on the national power grid. I think Bariamu Isachi will come in there to answer that one when the time comes. On pay, I don't know this, pay for the services of footage. I think even before pay, why should someone access this information? It's like we are trading information. I think that one is, we should start there, because this is the information which ideally even should be governed by the laws of the country. You don't just give it out even before we come to pay. Why should someone private? And it should ideally be used in law enforcement and investigations and prosecution. So even before we go to pay, I think the elephant in the room is how should this information go into private hands?
Information? Because Chair, in October last year, my farm, I have a farm in Mbale City, was attacked by some thieves. They broke in, took some animals, and that time I was not around. I was in Kenya. So I told my officers, my boys, to go and report the case. When they reached the police, in fact, the officers asked that we can help as we were preparing to go to court, because some suspects were arrested. Then the officers asked the boys to ask me to give them some money to go and retrieve the footages, but also do analysis. So, but for me, I told them I do not have that money, because this is crime. You cannot tell me to give them money when they really, their work is supposed to help the country be in order and fight crime. So I refuse. Up to now, the case is still in court.
Thank you, Honorable Court.
So I think the IGP will respond to that one, but I think the idea of the information we get from this is that it should help us to investigate crime and get the culprits, not to trade it even with the victims of crime and to make them pay. And where
in this case, you don't know the person asking for the footage. It could even be a victim.
It could be
a victim or a culprit.
But also, it's your work.
Yeah.
You have got the information, use it to get the culprit. So, but we shall get to the bottom of it. We've taken note of that one, and we shall pursue it so that whoever engages in trading footages is brought to book. Honorable Keo, do these cameras speak to each other? Yes, they do, and they are linked by the command center. I hope you had time to visit the command center, and the IGP and team will speak more to this integration, because at the end of the day, once you collect this information, it must be used, and the integration point is the command center at Naguru. The Auditor General's report indicates that the storage lifespan is 90 days. It needs an upgrade. The technical people should help us here, but also the backup. Once the information reaches expiry time in terms of storage, do we have a backup? I think technical people note that one, and you will reinforce me. Any relationship with private cameras? Somebody else raised it. For now, no. And we only use volunteer information from those with private cameras. We also don't have a legal regime that governs the private cameras and how they can input into the national grid of cameras.
With some take home. So it's something we should consider.
Yes, these people work in shifts, and I think how they are facilitated, the IGP will answer.
IGP?
Hiding their identity. You have been so low, and we have not had your communication and stand towards that. Why are they hiding? Is it part of the directives you give to them to hide their identity?
We have rules of engagement written down, even dress code, even everything. It's like having
Say and riot.
no, having a house but you go the extra mile of putting on a lock, because people are not saints. People make mistakes. What I want to say, Honorable Chiwanuka, is that we are having a conversation, and across the board, not just the security forces in this country, responsible behavior. Responsible behavior. You know, even civilians may be becoming defiant. People no longer have respect. So I think we need a deeper conversation beyond incidents to ensure that everybody does his work and does it the way it should be done. Everybody behaves the way. Because you can't also offend the law with reckless abandon and then expect somebody, the other side, to sometimes behave reasonably. Maybe now you get a clash of very extreme people, and this is a boiling point. So I think we need a deeper conversation about these things.
Honorable Minister, or Chair.
What the answers first? Thank you, Honorable Cooper.
So I think could we find out about the status and then provide answers to the honorable member? A more concrete, detailed status of
Tuliamu River.
Of Tuliamu River, yeah.
DPC can avail now. The case is you have phone calls everywhere, call about the same person.
So the matter is
give
that
you when it was reported and how.
Did you say 20 October 2020?
I think it is 2023. I'm not very sure.
I can assign Chelimo.
But at least the name of a person, I'm very confident about it.
Chelimo and Asaba can find out.
Okay.
The name and the areas. At least I'm very confident about that fact.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the date. But the name and the areas where he was picked, I'm very confident about it.
Okay, so Deputy Director CID and Asava, Cherimu and Asava, as the Minister instructed, take that up and update.
Thank you, Chair. Issues will be responded to by the Undersecretary, and the technical areas will be answered by the Director ICT,
yeah.
and then the investigative issues will be handled by either the representative of the Director CID and the representative of Director Crime Intelligence. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, IGP. I think efficiency or effectiveness of the CCTV system.
Chair, of tax exemption, we needed to find out what kind of taxes did you use this money for? Secondly, Mr. Chairman, on the quality, there was an issue of quality of cameras.
They were clearly taken care of. I think the question was asked, yes, effectiveness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the Honorable Minister, first of all, I'd like to thank you as a committee for inviting us on this very important infrastructure, which you made us enable, which you enabled us to acquire, and we are grateful for that. And indeed, it's a force multiplier. It is continuing to help us to do better in our policing activities. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you. I'd like to thank the Honorable Minister. Indeed, I think all the questions have been responded to, but I'll just make some additional comments and response. I was asked to begin with Honorable Chiwanuka's concern. Indeed, first and foremost, we don't tolerate indiscipline. And as the Honorable Minister has mentioned, we have standard operating procedures. We work within the intelligence framework, but led by the police. And maybe the other question I remember was, am I in charge of, I'm in charge of the police? I think that's the answer. I'm tasked to command and administer the police by the Constitution of this country, but equally I'm tasked in my tasks to work with other agencies in order to ensure security and safety of the people of Uganda. What I could add on this is that we don't take any indiscipline lightly. Whatever happened contravening the laws is regrettable, and the action you have also mentioned, the processes are already going on, and we shall not favor anybody, and the law will take its course.
Mr. IGP, thank you for that response. But your communication and your stand towards these people who battered Ugandans
and what we need to understand, what the private people can cede for purposes of law enforcement and what they can keep to themselves. So that one, there's no integration at this point. AI compliance, is the system compliant with AI? I want to say that the system itself is AI. We are already in AI, so it's artificial intelligence. The degree to what we want to go is, I think, the only difference. In some places, like in Dubai, they do smart policing. Smart policing, fewer people, it's eyes everywhere. But that also means money. It also means a lot of other things, including the law. how far can you pry into people's lives? You need to make a trade-off as a country to have that conversation, but it comes to money. So the system itself is AI, and indeed it speaks to AI, but the difference is the degree and extent we want to go in that direction to ensure that we enforce the law and do so better. Vandalism, we've had some cases, but we have inbuilt measures, sometimes with spikes on the poles of the cameras, not sufficient. Sometimes even our cameras are prone to damage by errant people who are driving recklessly. They knock them. Infrastructure development interference, yes, indeed. And the technical people will comment on this hazard on the camera system. The cost of phase 3, still IGP and team will provide it, and our financial person, the Undersecretary. Honorable Akoli, figures on the financials versus what was approved. He's saying we used more than what was approved. Where did you get the extra money? Undersecretary will answer that one. Then he also asks about the idea at inception was to have a crime-free country, but what is happening now regarding the ease of detection, of prevention of crime. I want to answer that the idea was to enhance criminal investigations, to make it easier for law enforcement to track down those who commit crime. And I think to an extent, this system has done its work. It has gaps, and that's why we are here to plug some of those gaps and even make it better. Whether cameras are networked, yes, they are, through the command center. Whether we should concentrate on Kampala as to have the main effort, yes, Kampala is the capital city, and most of the gaps we have are in the city. That's why in phase 3, desirably we would want to cover the gaps of phase 1 and 2, in addition to adding on the coverage. The honorable member also wants a comment on maintenance, how the current network is maintained. I think technical people will provide more information. He talks about page 4, the coverage, districts and municipalities, that we are talking about in some instances 100%. He wants you to amplify this and give more explanation. He's not satisfied. So technical people note that one. And then he's talking about border districts. Mariam Isachi, you answer the Honorable Wakoli on that one, because he's saying it seems we are not covered in the border districts where he comes from. Then he mentions the integrity of officers. This is key, very key, of the users of this information, a lot of information in the hands of these people. How are they vetted? What are the SOPs that governs their conduct? What are the sanctions that are there when they go astray, like the issue of pay, which we talked about? I think IGP will have to make a comment on that one, especially on the discipline of these people who handle this key information. Honorable Naboth talked about also performance. He's not satisfied. The technical person needs to elaborate more to satisfy his query. And then he talks about that kidnap in Rukunjiri in Wango Parish in 2023. Maybe CID and Asaba could make a comment on that case. But also it seems to me that those who kidnapped this person avoided the road and only appeared at Impiji. So that's the reason why they couldn't be seen until they reached Impiji. That's my layman's explanation, but the technical people will reinforce me. But also, the cameras are not an end in themselves. They are part of a system of infrastructure for law enforcement. So you have to have other complementary measures to make the best out of these cameras. And then update on the justification for even phase 3. That's what Honorable Naboth wants. Why, before you go to phase 3, you need to satisfy us that phase 1 and 2 have been worthwhile. And I think that's why we are here. But also, I'll need reinforcement from my colleagues to satisfy the Honorable Naboth. Why phase 3 before we are not convinced about phase 1 and 2? We need to satisfy the members, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who will, and this is part of the journey to that end state. Honorable Sekikali, no law yet. How did you start this system with no law governing the system? Under which law were they acquired? We've given a regime of laws which we have to be sensitive to, as we use especially the information we get from these cameras. You can install them, you don't need any enabling law, but how do you use them? The information you get from them without interfering with the privacy of people, without, how do you? That's why even before you talk of connecting private cameras to these ones, you need the people to agree. How much can I give away of my privacy to go on the national grid? And I think that's the conversation we talk about. How much information, which is not in the public space, how do you use it? Even for prosecution, to make it admissible in the courts of law. I think that's where we are. And we delayed indeed because of the evolving nature of our law enforcement system, but we need a legal regime to cover this very, very important subject about how we use this information to improve security of the public. Honorable Brandon, concerns in the figures, financials, and the Secretary, you have to answer that one. Why in dollars? I think maybe it's because the dollar is the currency of international exchange, but the financial people answer that one. Performance, he's saying that these cameras expose both us and the criminals. Indeed, yes, they are non-discriminative for them. They don't say this one is government, so it identifies mischief. Actually, if means allow, we would have even body cameras for the law enforcement people, so that we help to ensure that they comply with the law as they go about their work. So for me, I don't see anything wrong, provided we act well and within the law. If the cameras see us, are well and good. If they add on...
hide the identity. And that's what the minister was commenting on.
Chair, thank you very much. I think that has been explained by the Honorable Minister. And I think I would not be justified again to go on repeating the same answers from my Honorable Minister.
Okay.
It has been answered as far as I'm concerned.
But Chair, I have not got the answer honestly.
Then
you can help me to...
Through you, Chair, the Honorable could also give me the answer, because this is the answer from our side.
No, Honorable Chair, what I'm trying to
say...
say...
Honorable Chwanuka, I can put your... He meant to say officers who hide their faces. Wasn't that, Honorable Chwanuka?
Yeah, Honorable Chwanuka was saying...
Honorable Chwanuka, are you listening?
Yeah, he said he was talking about people who are hooded. Because it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable. If you are enforcing the law, you must be properly identified. You know, all those things that are required. And we said we guide. We have rules of engagement, written booklets to officers. So I think we shouldn't tire in our quest to ensure that we enforce the law and we enforce it according to the dictates of the
including the law enforcement officers.
Including the law enforcement officers.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I'm happy. There are honorable colleagues who...
I may tend to affect for the question which may have been asked. I'm sorry. Honorable Chair, I happen to be one of the victims in the hands of police in Kawempe, wherein IGP or DPC called Matovu of Kawempe ordered JAT to assault, batter, kicked and slapped me. I have had several of my colleagues and several Ugandans having gone through the same. And for the sake of the DPC of Wandegea, I have heard that some actions are being taken. I want to know whether it is a collective action being taken against all police officers who were involved in battering and killing and assaulting Ugandans in Kawempe, or it is a selective action, or it only requires us to take action like the one we took in 2017 against Nanoka and the then IGP. You remember very well, because I spearheaded that we need to do that, or an action is being taken against those police officers, or it is a selective action being taken. That is issue number one. Issue number two, Mr. IGP, still around that, are you the one who sanctioned JAT to do all those actions which it did, or you are not in control of them? And if you are not in control, who is in control of the JAT in Kawempe? Thank you.
So be it. Blind spots, Honorable Brandon also raised that point. You need to tell us, technical people. He says there are still blind spots which are not covered. Then the private cameras not being on the national grid, and depending on those who are volunteers of information, because lots of private people have information which they get from their cameras, but which they may not want to share to help us to resolve some of these crimes that take place in private places. Honorable Elijah commented about lighting and its interference, especially in Ntinda, and also the lighting on the expressway. We need a conversation to be concluded between us and Minister of Works, but you may want to comment on that one, IGP and team. And then lastly, Honorable Abdallah, DPC Matovu slapped him, and then in front of the cameras, I think IGP, you can start from there, but of course, we apply professional standards across the board. So if indeed he did what you say he did, it will be verified and action will be taken. Honorable Chiwanuka, and gladly you have said so when the police chiefs are here, and action will be taken against that officer, if indeed he did what you say he did. JAT is part of the security infrastructure. Internal security is led by the police, where other forces are involved other than the police, the military or intelligence services. They do so within the coordinated framework of the police and the joint operations that we have. Where they go, they do excesses, or even our police officers engage in excesses, then the law must apply, because we give them rules of engagement, we give them SOPs to follow. So I would rather we go to why people behave the way they do, but not why they get involved. We are part of security, but if somebody is errant, then action should be taken against them. I thank you, Chair. Now I call upon the IGP to reinforce me and the team.
Minister, something. We are talking about integrity of these officers in the control rooms, but also consider payment. If somebody is less paid, there will be no integrity. I think the last person we interacted was talking about very little figures on how much they earn. If you make